Can hear you.
All right, for those of you who are on the Zoom and did not hear the first couple of minutes of what I was saying, please go to elsa.sdc.cpp, and from there, please click the big blue button that says Launch vSphere Client. And from there, please enter the email and password that you will be receiving in your emails. And then you should be presented with what you're seeing on the screen right now. So as I was saying, some of your guys' pods might not be turned on. If you right click this, you should be able to see a power menu. If it's all grayed out, it's still being deployed. So please give it about 5 to 10 minutes and it should be up. If you do see that the buttons are not grayed out, please click the power on and it'll start turning your boxes on. But today is our workshop for Linux, and I'm going to teach you basically how to become a system administrator through Linux. Give me 1 second, please. Okay, so if everybody could please navigate to calpolyswift.org/workshop, you should be seeing this lovely thing. Now, this is going to be our workshop manual for today. You should see that I've basically written down our entire plan. If you feel comfortable with the stage that I'm currently on, feel free to move on. If not, don't worry. We have a bunch of keyboard members who are walking around to help out. But first of all, let's get a little bit used to Linux. Now, if you will remember, on Tuesday, I covered a lot of the basics of Linux, and we also had Jimmy and we had Dylan present some about users and file systems. Well, first, let's go ahead and explore the file system. The first command that we should get used to is ls. Can anybody remind us what ls stands for? Exactly. So if you do ls just in a terminal, oh wait, I should tell you how to open a terminal. So if you could open the Ubuntu desktop image, you should see 2 buttons. One says remote console, the other one says web console. Go ahead and click web console. And once you've clicked web console, you should see it pop up in a new window. And I cannot demonstrate this right now because my pod isn't fully created either. But you'll see basically the entirety of Ubuntu pop up. Now, the password and user for this workshop is Swift and Swift. So it's very easy to remember. So once you've logged into Ubuntu desktop, go ahead and hit Control-Alt-T. Control-Alt-T is a very useful command on Ubuntu that lets you open a terminal emulator. For those of you with active pods, could you please give us a thumbs up to let you know that you can see it? What's the pod status? My pod is not. Most of the pods are about 80% done setting up for those that are being set up. So I'll just open up my personal VMs. I mean, my VMs, and just demonstrate that. I'm just going to demonstrate on my on my personal boxes until I can get in. We're still using the same profile. Same profile.
You can go to the link.
My VM is frozen. I'm gonna open this. I'm gonna open up a backup VM. All right, may I have everyone's attention, please? So once you've opened up the web console, you should be able to see the Ubuntu desktop, as you can see right here. This is my own VM, so whatever files you may see on here will not be the same as the ones on your boxes. But if you hit Control-Alt-T, you should be able to see a terminal appear. If you can see a terminal appear, go ahead and use the ls command to go ahead and see what's inside of that directory, like so. Just as a quick reminder, the password to log into the Swift user is Swift. It's always Swift. So, yes. Jacob will take care of that. If your pods are still cloning, please be patient. They are still turning on, and the data center needs a little bit of time to process it. Mine is up. So it's not in order. Mine is powering on. Okay. Most of your guys' boxes should now be powering on if they haven't been powered on already. Yes, if you are done with the ls command, please go ahead and follow through with this manual. The link is calpolyswift.org/workshop. Once my pod is ready, I will go ahead and start demonstrating. But until then, feel free to walk through it on your own. Bye, Taylor. What? I had to clone 30 pods at the last minute. Yeah. And because of that, I'm throwing off my stride. At least LDM starting. Bye bye. This is all right. So, uh, for those of you who are a little bit stuck, I finally have my machines booted up, so I'll be able to actually demonstrate. So, if you're here, the password is just Swift. pretty simple. And then you'll see a big panther. I think that's a panther. And it will pop up with a desktop in just a second. All right, so here we are on the desktop. If you hit Control-T, as I've said before, you can create your terminal. So now you'll see Swift at Swift. So if I do ls, we can see a whole bunch of things here. For example, we can see the folder special. And let's say that I use the cd command to change into desktop. Now, what does cd stand for? Exactly, it stands for change directory. So I'm going to change directory into desktop. And I'm going to do another ls so I can see what's in desktop. Well, I can see a readme.txt. And what do we know about readmes? We should always read them. So can somebody please suggest a command to open this readme file? All right, let's use cat. I'm going to cat readme.txt. And wow, we can see that the text of the file is actually printed out here. Now, let's say I wanted to open it a different way. Well, I could less readme.txt, and it opens it up in a cute little terminal thing right here. I can scroll through it, and then I just press Q when I'm done to get out of that. Now, once I'm done with that, I want to create a new file. So what is the command that I would use to create a new blank file? Exactly, the command is touch. So can somebody give me a file name? Just any file name. Dinosaurs. All right, I'm going to touch Okay, I'm not going to finish that sentence, but if I do ls, you can see that I have dinosaurs and readme.txt in the desktop directory. Now, I'm going to try to move this somewhere. So what command would I use to move these files? MV. And what does MV stand for? Exactly. Linux is very easy, everyone. So let's go ahead and move dinosaurs to /home/Swift. And if we ls, dinosaurs is gone. They left the desktop and they're suddenly in home. So let's also move readme. And if you press tab, Linux is very smart. It auto-completes for you. So move readme.txt to /home/Swift. Now, instead of having to type out /home/Swift every time, I can actually type out ... Now, ... is a very special operator, and it basically tells that, hey, I want to move, I want that to be the directory that is behind this one. So if we look at the entire current directory right now with pwd, currently I'm in /home/Swift/desktop. So what ... would do is it would indicate the directory behind desktop. And what's behind desktop? Swift. So in this instance, ... refers to /home/Swift. So if I move the readme.txt to ... if I ls, suddenly the readme.txt is no longer here. So let's also cd ... And if we look, we are back in the /home/Swift directory. Now, you can see that I have dinosaurs and readme.txt here. Now, I like these files, and I think they're very special. So I'm going to move these files into special, but I don't want them to get out of here. I want them to have a copy in special. So what command would I use to copy a file? What command would I use to copy a file? CP. And what does CP mean? Exactly. So I'm going to copy readme.txt to special. And if I ls, you can see that readme.txt is still here, and I can cat the output of readme.txt. It's still here. If I change directory to special, and if I ls, you can see that I have a readme.txt here as well. And if I cat that readme.txt, it's the exact same file, which is pretty cool. You can move an entire folder if you want to do that, but I don't recall if you can do that. I believe it's one at a time. Alrighty. Let's say that I want to remove this README from the special folder because I no longer think it's special. What command would I use to do that? What if I want to remove the readme.txt file from special? RM. And what does RM stand for?
RM.
Exactly. So I'm going to rm readme.txt. And if I ls again, it ain't there. Like it literally ain't there. Now, just as something that you might encounter, I'm going to create a new file called .hidden. Now, what do you expect to see if I type ls? You'll expect to see .hidden just right there, right?
Hidden.
Wait a second. I thought I just created a file called .hidden. Where did that file go? In order to find files with a dot in front of it, we use a special option called -LA for the ls command. And what this does is it lists literally everything. So if I hit enter, you can see now, I can see the .hidden file where before I couldn't see it. This is also extremely useful to view permissions. If you remember permissions, you'll see that this means that, well, what does the first group of letters mean? What does the first group of letters mean? RW dash. Not quite. Root has nothing to do with this one. But basically, the first group of 3 letters means the user or the owner can read and write this file but cannot execute the file. So if this file is a program, I as Swift cannot execute that. Now, if we look at the second group, RW dash, who does that apply to? Not root. That's not a user. It would apply to the user's group. So in this case, the owner is Swift and the group is Swift. So anyone who is the username Swift can read and write this file, and anyone who is in the Swift group can read and write this file. But let's say you're anybody else. You're literally anybody else. What are you allowed to do with .hidden? You're only allowed to read it. You can't change it, and you can't execute it. All right, so we have .hidden here. Now let's say I want to put this into a new folder. How would I create a new folder? What command would I run? Yep, which is simplified to? Correct. So let's make directory. And go ahead and give me a name. Go ahead and give me a directory name. Test. All right, I'm creating the test directory. And now if I ls, boom, I have the test directory. And of course, hidden is still there. It's just behind, it's hidden. So, and then I can move .hidden to to test. If I ls-la, we can see that .hidden is no longer there. And if we go to test, we can see that hidden is actually here. So with these commands, you can navigate the file system and move things around as you will. So go ahead and take a couple of minutes to explore moving around files and looking at files. And go ahead and go into the CentOS boxes and the Ubuntu server boxes and try to move around files there too. At 6:50, I'll go on to the next section. All right, it's expected. So, once more, I will remind people that we can find today's lab manual at www.calpolyswift.org/workshop. That is where you'll find where I've been doing everything. You'll also find basically the plan for tonight, and you can see that we'll be going through becoming administrator, package managers, SSH, and PAM. So let's go ahead and go back here. And now we're going to become administrators. So as an administrator, you need to know how to manage the users in your system because you're not going to be the only person using your computer. There might be, for example, Jacob, who's using my computer. So let's say that I want to create a new user. If we go to the lab manual, we can see that I want to create a new user for my friend. Now, my friend's name is Sauron. So I'm going to create a new user for Sauron. What command would I use to create a new user called Sauron? I would use add user. But if I run add user Sauron, it tells me, wait a second, only root may add a user or group to the system. Well, that sounds like a problem, right? Because I'm not root. So how do I get the powers of root? Sudo is the command. Sudo means super user do. And basically with sudo, you can grant root permissions to whoever is running that command. So everybody's Swift users are all sudo users for your systems. So if I do sudo add user Sauron, and it'll ask me for my password, so I'm going to type in Swift. We can see that this time it actually creates a user called Sauron. Then it creates a group called Sauron. Then it adds Sauron to that group. It creates a new directory called /home/Sauron. And then it creates a new home directory for Sauron based on /etc/skel. So now we're going to enter a password for Sauron. I'm going to make the password ring. I'm going to retype the password again just to make sure that I typed it in correctly the first time. First, his full name is Sauron. His room number is the Dark Tower. His work phone is no, because he doesn't have one. He also doesn't have a home phone number. Other details, he is the Lord of the Rings. And it'll ask us, is this information correct? And since I know that this information is correct, I press Y, I hit enter, and now we have Sauron. Now, what if I want proof that Sauron exists? What file in the system contains every single user? Home would be a good start. So let's go to /home and let's ls. Sauron's here now. We have the Lord of the Rings. But what if I want a more concrete way? In other words, what if the Sauron directory didn't exist here? How would I check to see if a user exists in the system? I'll give you a hint. The file is in /etc, and it doesn't sound like what it should be. Password. Who said password? Dylan? So let's go ahead and let's go into etc password. And let's do sudo just to make sure that we have permissions to do so. And we can see a whole bunch of users here. So let's go ahead and go all the way to the bottom. And we can see that Sauron is a user that exists on this system. All right, so now we have my best friend on the system. Wait a second, Sauron's not my best friend. Frodo Baggins is my actual best friend. And Sauron's an evil Dark Lord. So I want to get rid of Sauron on this system. So what command would I use to delete Sauron? Del user. So I'm going to sudo, because you need permissions to do this, del user Sauron. And you can see that it says, okay, we're removing that user. We're making sure that the group has no more members, and we're done. So now let's go into /home, since we're still here. Let's ls. Wait a second. Sauron stuff is still here. So you would think that he still exists in the system, right? But what if I open Etsy password? If we scroll all the way to the bottom, there ain't no Sauron here. So basically, if you want to prove that a user exists on a system or doesn't exist on a system, you have to open Etsy password and kind of look for them. So let's go ahead and add the correct user. Let's go ahead and sudo add user Frodo. Now I'm going to give Frodo a new password called the Shire. Now his full name is Frodo Baggins. He lives at Bag End. He doesn't have a work phone. He doesn't have a home phone. Other information, he's the ring bearer. And this information is absolutely correct. So I hit Y, and Frodo has now been added to this system. So now let's say I want to create a new group. Now I did not go over this last time, but the command to create a new group is called group add. So I would do sudo group add and then the name of the group. Now, Frodo is a Tolkien character, so I am going to create a new group called Tolkien. And if we go into Etsy group, and if we go all the way down to the bottom, we can see that we have a new group called Tolkien. Now let's exit that. And let's say I want to add Frodo to the Tolkien group. How would I add Frodo to the Tolkien group? It's actually very simple. You just open the Etsy group file, you scroll all the way down to the group name, then you literally just add his name in. And if I write this file, and basically saving it, and then I exit, now Frodo is in the Tolkien group. And actually, I'm going to open it up again. And I'm going to go ahead and add Swift to the Tolkien group. So I just comma space Swift. Great. So now we have Swift and Frodo in the Tolkien group. So let's go ahead and create a new directory in /temp. So I'm going to go to /temp with cd. And if I ls, we can see a whole bunch of random stuff that you won't care about. And let's go ahead and make a new directory. What's the command to do that? mkdir, correct. mkdir rings. And if I ls, and if I put rings as my argument here, I can I can specifically get information about the folder rings. That didn't work for some reason. Okay, so ignore that little comment I did right there. But basically, now I can see the directory rings. Now, who owns the directory rings? Sauron doesn't actually own it. Sauron doesn't even exist on the system anymore. So who actually owns the rings folder? Swift. Swift owns it. And what group owns the rings folder? Swift. Now, let's say that I want everyone in the Tolkien universe and everyone in the Tolkien group to be able to access the rings folder. So how would I let everyone in the Tolkien group access rings? I have to give them the permission to do so. Not only that, but I also have to change the owner of the rings folder. So let's go ahead and chown. Let's add a colon. And then let's say token, and then we do rings. Now, we can see that that operation was not permitted because I'm not the sudo user. So this time I do sudo, and it actually works. So if I look at rings again, now we can see that the token group owns rings. So anybody in the token folder can do what? What can everyone in the token folder do? Read, write, and execute. That is correct. So let's say that I don't want anybody to be able to execute in rings. So what command would I do to change a permission? One more time. What command would I use to change the permission of a file or folder? Chmod, that is correct. So let's say that I want it so that the folder owner can read and write and execute. The group can read and write but not execute. And everybody else can read it but cannot write and cannot execute. Does anybody know the permissions that I would use for this? So let's say that I want Swift, like the user Swift, to be able to read, write, and execute anything in rings. Let's say that I want the group token to be able to read and write but not execute. And let's say that I want everyone else to be able to read in this folder but not do anything else. So what permissions would I set to the rings folder? If you do not recall, remember that there is a very useful website called stagemod-calculator.com, I believe. And you can click a couple buttons and come up with the appropriate number. It would be 764, which is correct. So let's go ahead and sudo chmod 764 rings. Now, if I take a look at it one more time, we can see that Swift can read, write, and execute. Token group users can read and write but not execute. And everybody else can only read, cannot write, and cannot execute. Now, I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to go through and to try this out on your own. So, yeah, I will come back at 7:10 to talk about package managers. Feel free to add as many users as you want and then remove them or just keep them. So we can use that later. Let's start with this adjustment. All right here. Alrighty, guys. So let's talk about package managers now. Now, I'm not FedEx and I'm absolutely not Amazon. So what do I mean by a package manager? Well, put simply, a package is a piece of software in Linux. So let's go ahead and install a very fun piece of software for Ubuntu. Let's go ahead and use the apt command. Now, apt is a dependency manager. What that means is it not only installs the package that you want it to install, it also installs anything that is required for that package to run. So I'm going to try to install the command sl. Now, I'll show you what it does in just a second, but I would do apt install sl. Now, can anybody tell me why this command might not work? Sorry? I can't hear. Sorry? Exactly. In order to modify the system files, you need to have sudo permissions. So let's go ahead and do sudo apt install sl. So now we can see a whole bunch of stuff happening. And we can see here it says the following package was automatically installed and no longer required. What that means is that particular package was needed for something else, but we don't need it anymore. So we can do stuff to remove it later. But if we read the rest of this, we can see the following new packages will be installed. SL. And it does a whole bunch of stuff. You can ignore that, but it'll dump us back into our terminal. So now I'm going to run the command SL, and we can see a lovely train moving across the screen. Now, let's install another program. This program is called calsave. So I'm going to sudo apt install calsave. We can see it's basically doing the exact same stuff. And now we have the program calsave. So let's say that the cal wants to wish you good luck. Then I can say calsave good luck. And then we literally have a cal right there who's saying good luck. And if you want a cal to tell your fortune, you can type fortune. You can use a long straight line character. I don't know what that's called. And then pipe. Yeah, pipe. And then you can do calsave. And what that does is tell me that Fortune is not installed because I didn't install Fortune. Luckily, Linux is kind of smart and it knows if you're trying to type a command that it happens to know belongs to a package that has not been installed, it will tell you that it needs to be installed. So it tells me that I need to install sudo apt install fortune mod if I want to use the command fortune. So let's go ahead and do that. Sudo apt install fortune mod. This time it's going to ask me if I want to continue because it is installing 3 different packages. Now hold on a second. I only asked it to install the fortune mod package. Well, what's happening is that because apt is a dependency manager, it tells me, hey, wait a second, fortune mod requires fortune's min and lever code 0 in order to run. So it's going to tell me that it's going to also install those packages alongside fortune mod to make sure that fortune mod will work. So I'm going to hit a Y for that. It downloads those packages, it does a lot of setup, it does a lot of things in the background, and it's done. So let's go ahead and do fortune calce. And it tells me that after your lover has gone, you will still have peanut butter. Well, I haven't eaten peanut butter in quite a while, so I don't know about that, but hello, Robinson. So let's also install another fun program. Raise your hand if you've watched The Matrix. So you know all of that weird Matrix stuff that goes on in the movie. Well, let's go ahead and recreate that a little bit inside of the terminal. Let's go ahead and sudo apt install cmatrix. And it's going to install cmatrix. Now, if I run cmatrix, we can see that a whole bunch of stuff goes on the screen. And if you want to quit the program, you do Control C, and it just ends. So you might think that if you want to install the same program on a different system, it's going to be the exact same, right? Well, let's test that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to vSphere, and I'm going to open up CentOS. And I'm going to open up the web console. So let's go ahead and log in. You need to hit enter for it to go to this screen. Hit enter again. You type in your password, which is still Swift. Then once it's logged in, which give it a second, it will. Go to activities. And on the left side, you'll see this icon that clearly says terminal. And click it. You have the exact same terminal. So let's try the command to install calce again. Let's sudo apt install calce. And then it's going to give me a whole bunch of stuff about, oh, you're an administrator, be careful. Just make sure you're careful and you're fine. Wait a second. Apt is not found. So what would I use on CentOS? The package you use is called yum. I forgot what yum stands for, but it's not because it's delicious. So let's do yum instead of apt. Sudo yum install calce. This time, as you can see, it works. It's just being very slow. And it tells me that calce does not exist on CentOS. The reason for that is because CentOS is built on Red Hat. And Red Hat is a distribution that has a very famous history of providing you with only the bare minimum number of packages to run your systems. Now, this is extremely beneficial for running a server because you don't need a whole bunch of random packages like calce in order to run your web server. So by having this minimal installation, basically you're preventing somebody from installing a whole bunch of programs without doing a bunch of other loopholes first. I don't think any of the other programs here will work on CentOS. You'll have to do a couple of configuration options if you want it to actually install those programs. But let's go ahead and install a different thing just to demonstrate that yum works. Let's do sudo yum install HTTP, I believe it is. What was it? Oh well. How do you install web server on CentOS again? What's the package for web server on CentOS? Is it HTTPD? Okay, it's HTTPD, which will make sense after I explain what SSH is later. But you can see over here, it does a whole bunch of other stuff. And it asked me if it's okay to install this program. Now, I'm not going to install it because I don't want to put a web server on the CentOS box, but you could easily have just hit yes and allowed it to install. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to experiment around with apt and yum. Go ahead and Google packages you might want to install if you want to do that. But I will come back at 7:25 to discuss SSH. We don't know that though. I think it's gonna go crazy. Oh, it only takes the last line. Choo choo. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and get out of our C matrix here. And let's go ahead and talk about SSH. Now, does anybody here know what SSH stands for? Secure Shell is correct. What Secure Shell lets you do is log into another computer system remotely. So you don't have to physically be there to be able to open it. So let's go ahead and install SSH onto our Ubuntu server VM. So let's go back to vSphere and let's go to the Ubuntu server box. And let's go ahead and open the web console. First of all, you're going to see this. You're no longer dealing with a fancy GUI. This is pure text. No more copy paste, no more right click, no more mouse at all. Just a terminal. But this really isn't that scary because everything you've done until now can be applied to this. Welcome to Ubuntu server. Now, if I do ls, you can still see the readme and special are here too because I did the exact same thing. But let's go ahead and use apt to install SSH. So the command you're going to run is sudo apt install open SSH server. Now, the reason why you're installing open SSH server is because open SSH server is an open source implementation of SSH. Now, if you'll recall from what I talked about this on Tuesday, open source is a dedication towards providing software for free to everyone, for everyone to use as they want, as long as you provide them credit. So OpenSSH has a code base that is free for anyone to open up and check out. So let's go ahead and install this server. And it's going to ask me for my password, which is Swift. And we will see it's installing a whole bunch of things. We have all of these things. Not only just OpenSSH server. And once again, the reason for that is because apt is a dependency manager. It's installing all of this additional stuff that is required for SSH to work. So if we hit Y to mean yes, we can go through. And it's going to download a whole bunch of stuff. And it's going to set up a lot of stuff. And eventually, we're getting an error for installing SSH. Justin, was this made with the clean box? Was the server made with the clean box? We have an internet interface.
Oh, wait, did you just install SSH?
Yeah.
I remember one time I installed it, it didn't work, and then I uninstalled and reinstalled it, it just started working. Might be one of those things.
All right, well, this is a great opportunity to learn how to remove a package. So let's go back to this original command. We have sudo apt install OpenSSH server. So instead of install, what would I do to remove OpenSSH server? Sudo apt remove, exactly. So let's replace install with remove. Let's go ahead and agree to that. And then let's go ahead and reinstall it. We've already agreed to installing OpenSSH server once, so it's going to know that. That's odd. Yeah? That's annoying. Wait, but that's not related to the RSA keys. Yes. So this is a great time to learn about another command. This one is called purge. Now, while remove will remove the actual program itself, it leaves the configuration files behind. So if you reinstall the program again, it's going to have the exact same configuration. Now, if you want to remove those configuration files, what you do is use the purge command. So let's do sudo apt purge, spelling it correctly, open SSH server. And let's agree to that. And then let's go ahead and try to reinstall it again. And this time it works. Sometimes computers just don't like you. You said remove. Fair enough. Fair enough. So now, if we do sudo systemctl, systemctl is kind of like a program that lets you view the status of things and like change the status of things. But anyways, sudo systemctl status sshd, we can see that SSH is active and running. Now, wait a second. I thought the program was called SSH. Why am I typing status SSHD? Well, D stands for daemon, and daemon is basically a running process. So basically, by putting the D there, we're indicating that we're talking about the SSH that is running as a server here. So, basically you can see right now, it's listening on 0.0.0 port 22. Port 22 is always SSH. Now, you can change that, but port 22 is, in the Internet Protocol, always 22. So, let's go ahead and try to use SSH. Let's go into our Ubuntu desktop, and let's use the SSH command. Now, the syntax for the SSH command is very simple. You use the SSH program, you type the user that you want to SSH into. So I'm going to do Swift. You type @ to indicate that you're going on to the computer, and then you need to know the IP address of that computer. To do that, let's go back to the Ubuntu server, and let's do IP space A. What this does is it prints out a whole bunch of text. But what's important for us right now is this right here. That is our IP address. And in this case, it's 192.168.1.42. So let's go ahead and go back to Ubuntu desktop, and let's do 192.168.1.42. And it'll ask us if we want to accept this connection. Now, the reason why it does this is that SSH generally operates with public key authentication. And what that means is they have to copy a public key every time you want to use it. So in this case, it's using an ECDSA key, and it sent you a key. Now, the fingerprint is kind of like a way to identify that key. And in this case, the fingerprint is SHA-256, blah, 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 a whole bunch of text. But basically, it's saying, hey, we don't recognize this computer you're trying to connect to. Are you sure you want to connect to that computer? And in this case, yes, because I know that this computer is the one that I'm connected to, and I know that this is my first time connecting to it. But what this does is it prevents what is known as a man-in-the-middle attack. What a man-in-the-middle attack tries to do is hijack that SSH connection to try to listen into whatever commands you're trying to execute. But by executing a man-in-the-middle attack, you're effectively sending your own key across as well. SSH recognizes that you're sending another key, and it'll tell you that there's another key trying to connect. So that will be your hint that somebody's trying to attempt a man-in-the-middle attack. If you're connecting to a computer you already have connected to before, and it's asking you for a new key, you might want to check to make sure that you're not being attacked. But in this case, I know I'm not being attacked, so I'm going to type yes and misspell it and then actually type it out correctly. And it's going to ask me for the user's password, which is Swift. Bam. Now we can see up there, welcome to Ubuntu 20.04.4 LTS, blah, 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 a whole bunch of other information. But that tells us that we're now logged in to the Ubuntu server machine. Just for proof, I'm going to run IPA. We're going to see that it claims that my IP address is .1.42. But if I exit and if I do IPA, we can see that this box's IP address is actually .1.2. So we can see that with the SSH command, we've logged in to another computer. And the great part is you don't have to just log in from one computer. Let's go to our CentOS box. And let's log in. So let's do SSH Swift at 192.168.1.42. Now, before I do this, I'm going to quickly open another terminal. And I'm going to run IPA. Okay. We know that this CentOS machine runs on 192.168.122.1. So let's go ahead and finish our SSH. It's going to ask us to recognize the fingerprint because, once again, this is the first time we're connecting to SSH from this machine to that server. So if I type in yes, we will see that's asking me for the password. So let's go ahead and type in Swift. Bam. That is an Ubuntu prompt, but we're on CentOS, which shows that we've successfully logged into that machine. And just for proof, I'm going to run IPA. And while this terminal, which is on this machine, says that our IP address is 1.122.1, the one that I just SSH'd into shows .1.42. So we have successfully logged in to another computer with SSH. Now, the great thing about SSH is that you can now use any command that you would normally use just from a different computer. So let's ls, and we can open the README. So I'm going to cat README, and it says, interesting, you actually read the README? But if I cat the README that's inside of the CentOS box, it's clearly a different file because this one says, hello, I'm glad you read me. So with SSH, you can remotely administer your systems. And this is extremely powerful. It means you do not need to be physically at the machine's location in order to execute commands. I could be sitting on my couch and executing a whole bunch of commands to stop Taylor from hacking me, while in the meantime, my computer is literally on the other side of the world. So let's give us about 10 minutes, 5 minutes to experiment with SSH. Go ahead and try to SSH into your Ubuntu server machine. And, you can maybe install SL, you can install CMatrix, you can try to do other things, you can open files, create users, delete users. You have 5 minutes, and then we'll go into PAM. We are probably not going to have enough time to go over it. Actually, we're on right into it. And then you want this. That was partially your mic.
You do.
Technically, you misused my script. It's not my fault.
But you made the script. So
But you changed
you
the
made the tool, I pressed the button.
But then you change the tool, and then you press the button. There you go. Your problem. Oh. Yeah. Why did you just ask me to So I'm going to go a little bit quickly here because we're running out of time, but I would like to quickly demonstrate PAM. Now, if you remember last time, PAM stands for Pluggable Authentication Module. And what PAM is used for is for authentication. So with PAM, we can basically we can install a module called libpw quality. Now, libpw quality is a module for PAM that basically makes sure that the quality of your passwords is high enough to be at least minimally secure. So Who did the broadcast message? Okay, so I'm going back to my terminal here. So I'm going to install libpam pw quality. So let's do sudo apt install libpam pw. It's lagging for some reason. I know. Please bear with me. The computers are being a little bit slow right now. It's being very slow, but let's do sudo apt install libpam pw quality. And if I hit enter, it'll ask me for the password again because sudo asks you for the password every 5 minutes. So let's go ahead and hit the password. And we can see that it's now installing pw quality. So now pw quality is installed. So what do I do with this? First of all, I have to set minimal password requirements. So I'm going to edit the etc login.defs file. So let's do sudo nano etc login.defs. And we see this gigantic file right here. So let's go down and let's look for the line. It's almost there. Almost there. Okay, here we go. These are the password aging controls. Basically, these let you set how long you can keep a password. So, with pass max days, you can basically say, okay, you're only allowed to use this password for that many days. By default, you can use a password for almost 10,000 days, which is clearly a problem because you don't want you to keep your password for that long. So if I go ahead and edit this, I can change it to a more reasonable number, like say 60. It means you have to change your password every 2 months. Now, that is kind of annoying, but basically it makes sure that your passwords are fresh and any passwords that did get leaked cannot be used in the future. Now, we also have pass min days, which is practically the opposite of pass max days. Pass min days basically lets you set a minimum number of days before you can change a password. So, a good time would typically be about 9, 7, something like that. And then for a warn age, that basically means how long before the password expires am I going to warn you that your password is going to expire. So in this case, it is going to warn you 7 days before the password expires. So let's go ahead, Control O to write it, Control X, and now it is enforcing that password policy. But that's not the only place where it's important. We also need to check the etc.pam.d folder. That is where you're going to find all of the configuration files for PAM. So let's go there right now. As you can see, there are a lot of config files here for how to configure how PAM works. But the one that we're going to worry about right now is common auth. So let's go ahead and sudo nano common auth. And we can see a whole bunch of options right here. So we need to add the PW quality module to here. Now, we are running low on time, so I'm not going to actually show you that. But if you want to find out, just Google install PW quality. There's like 50 guides on how to do that. But the other important file that you're going to want to know is the PW quality conf file. And if I'm not wrong, that's in Etsy. So you can do sudo nano pw quality.conf. Take out the D because that shouldn't be there. Not the W, just the D. Okay. That doesn't exist because it's in, there's another. It's where's the file? My brain is blanking right now. Is it in PEM? PW quality file. It's a security, thank you. So now if we edit this file, we can see a whole bunch of configuration options for its PW quality. So it's pretty explanatory in the comments here. But basically, you're setting a bunch of requirements. For example, how long the password has to be, how many different characters you need, or how many different types of characters you need. The four groups you have are lowercase characters, uppercase characters, numbers, and symbols. A combination of how many, and so on and so forth. So if we go through this, you can see that there's a whole bunch of options. Some things you want to enable. You want to enable pretty much all of those up above. You also want to enforce for root so that you can make sure that root always has a good password too. I'm not going to go ahead and do that because, again, we're a little bit low on time. But yeah, if you edit that, you can basically ensure that people have stronger passwords. Now, what a lot of eBoard will tell you is that PAM is very easily breakable. And this is absolutely true. You cannot always rely on your PAM configuration to keep your system secure because you can easily break it. Now, does that mean you shouldn't try? No, because PAM is literally used to authenticate everything. In fact, in SSH, you use PAM most of the time to make sure that the users are who they say they are. But for the most part, don't just rely on a secure password configuration. Don't just rely on making sure that your permissions for everything are correct. Don't just make sure to rely on. Don't just rely on making sure that only the appropriate users are on your system. You have to go through. You have to make sure that the services that you run on your machines, the firewalls you configure, everything that you do on this machine is done in a way that prevents as much access as possible. Because at the end of the day, security is not necessarily about keeping them out permanently, but security is about making sure that you are the least attractive target. And if your system is hard to get into, you are a very unattractive target. Does anybody have any questions? Alrighty, well, with that, I'd like to thank you very much for coming out to tonight's Linux workshop. If you would like to explore more on Linux, feel free to go to our lab manual. At the bottom over here, I put a couple of interesting topics you should go into. UFW, IP tables, firewall D, those are firewalls. PW quality, please explore more about it. pretty important. Learn about lamp stacks. It's not about lighting. Dive into file access control lists, and also learn about SE Linux. SE Linux is the bane of all Linux system administrators. So if you can learn SE Linux, that's great. Well, once again, thank you very much for coming out, and we'll see you next Tuesday.